Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. Y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz, and joining me from Sacramento, Aaron Schroeder. Aaron, how's it going?
It's going great, Nate. Good to see you. Happy to be here.
Good to see you too. We are back to revise the top 300. We've gone back this summer. We've expanded at our top positional rankings to 100 per each position. We've done some reshuffling. We've worked in some new guys. And now we're here to discuss some of the emails and just some of the changes that we've made into things here. Mr. Possible Chairs, do you want to start off with some of the emails?
Yeah, and the emails have been fantastic, and a big thank you to everyone that reached out to us. Um, I felt like I wasn't sure what to anticipate, like asking people to reach out to us, but I was pretty blown away by that. Now, do you want to start with the ones at the top, or do you want to start with the most interesting ones? Are we starting at the very top of our list?
I think we start at the very top of the list. It might be a bit
Mhm.
much to just jump around on fully. Plus, I've
Yeah,
got the list pulled up to display, so we can see the top up a little bit through here.
sure.
And if I'd stop hovering over players' names, and it would stop pulling up that thing. But um, listen, I threw all of the emails in a Word document. Some of
Mhm.
them are over 1,000 words long, so we're not going
Yes.
to read the entire things
No.
in this setting. We've read them, but to summarize for
Yeah,
the
of course.
listeners, uh, so let's get into it.
Some
We
serious
have
essays for sure.
Yes, we have three pro LeBron over Jordan, the case for the GOAT arguments. The first one, I'm going to read a bit of it. When judging greatness, it is important to consider everything that a person has done on and off the court before, during, and after their careers, their impact to players, their teams, the game, and even society. Among all the players in history, LeBron James exemplifies this greatness the best. The emailer then goes on to talk about how even in his faux pas moment of the decision, that was still a charity raising event, which he did for the good of the community. He talks about his not having any major controversies. I think we can get into that a bit more. And then he gets into some of the more on the court things, which I think is what you and I probably care more about. LeBron's great longevity, his versatility and adaptability being unmatched. And then finally, being one of the most influential players of all time. That is something that I would push back against. Is there anything particular in this that you'd like me to read more of or dig deeper into? Of the
I wanna give a shout out to Micah, the one sending us email. We'll go first name. First name, nothing more identify them. But just so you know, we're reading their email, not trying to get them like doxed or something with the full name. But thank you, Micah. It's an interesting take. I think there's something to like Jordan being kind of like a degenerate and LeBron being like the model American in the pro sports world. It's not something that we really take into consideration off the basketball court stuff. Um, I think it's a plus in the LeBron camp, right? But it's nothing that we're really gonna look at because I mean, throughout this list, I think honestly, when you move past like what the top 20 guys, like, do you even know what their off the court situation is? And like, we couldn't really stay consistent with that.
Yeah. Like Tobias Harris is doing sustainable housing projects in Los Angeles right now. That's fucking awesome.
Mhm.
Don't know how many people know that about Toby.
Hey, take
I would
Steph Curry down, knock him out of the top 20. Anti-affordable housing, Steph Curry, bad person.
exactly. I would also push back a little bit on LeBron having this. Uh, what were the words that he used? Was here this impact on society, and especially in the considerations of Jordan, the influence of basketball. Pre-Jordan, finals were tape delayed. Basketball was struggling to even like reach hockey standards of television. Now it is basketball and football as the two premier sports in the greater US market. The global market, it's behind cricket and soccer, but I don't think much else behind that. And a large part of that is the Jordan influence being the dream team. And I will just say, whenever you start talking about most influential people in a sport or really in life, I think the guys who come earlier have what we might say is an unfair advantage in that, in just, you know, hey, George Mikan's dominance led to the merging of the leagues. It led to the desegregation of the league. That's pretty fucking influential. I don't know how influential LeBron's impact is on the league as far as expanding its horizons, its borders, as far as inspiring an entire generation to grow up and want to be basketball players that wouldn't have already, because the game was already so much more popular before LeBron came around.
Yeah, of course. I think with Jordan, you get the most gripping and the most watched finals, at least for TV ratings ever, like by far, 98. Um, the influence is there. I mean, you can I think I know what LeBron's logo looks like. I know it's like an interesting argument, but like it's like a
It's an
little
L and a
crown,
B and a
right?
crown.
It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, but like everyone on God's green earth knows what could draw you a little Jordan jump man. Um, but I like the argument, and like I think we're pretty casual GOAT debaters. Like, I think we see the LeBron case, and we're not, so we understand it. And I've never been like, oh, LeBron had won, get this list out of here.
Yeah,
Like, I think
absolutely.
it's not what's gonna hold us up. But yeah, I
I
had
think
a TikTok comment, a pro LeBron TikTok comment. You can stay in the pro LeBron movement. Um, from NBA historian, I'd say friend of the pod. We follow each other on TikTok.
yeah,
He said LeBron
yeah.
is 2 All NBA selections away from doubling MJ. I think at some point MJ's lack of seasons has to catch up to him, as well as taking into account how weak the late 90s were. Also, Russell better than Kareem. Little toss in at the end there. And
Right.
I like to ask him about that one, about the back end, but I think eventually it's just an overwhelming career from LeBron. I just don't know when I'll get there. 'Cause I feel like I'm doing the best peaks of all time series right now, and I just don't know if LeBron ever, like, I don't know, it just didn't you didn't grip the league like Jordan did for a whole decade. Like, holy shit, dude, he three-peated twice. Like, it's just unbelievable.
I do think part of that, and I want to jump into our second LeBron email. This
Mhm.
paragraph in it. The biggest fault of LeBron is that he did not come first. LeBron James has to live in the shadow of someone he never got the chance to compete against, someone who has nostalgia on their side, and someone who, while still a top two player of all time, has a cult of personality crafted by Nike. None of us are impervious to propaganda, and Be Like Mike is one of the greatest pieces of indoctrination the world has ever seen. The shift of a team pushing into a player pushing association that is the modern NBA started with Jordan. While he is a great one to begin with, the trend with his demeanor, I hate the argument that he changed the culture of the NBA when it clearly was one of the best ad campaigns ever designed by Nike and the NBA. If LeBron had come first, being a 6'9 monster in the physically dominant 90s, we would not have ever had this conversation.
I get it. I get it, right? It goes back to the influence thing where like it's Jordan's
Hmm.
game to save, and he brings them from a tape recorded league to like, holy shit, Michael Jordan's playing. We have to go
Absolutely.
watch this. Um, I think if you flip LeBron and MJ's career, they're probably about the same. Like I think like yeah, I think we'd have that argument. Of LeBron being the most influential player above Jordan. I guess that's why it doesn't affect our change, because like it really is just like, well, which one of these guys came first on an influential level.
So there are two things that I would want to say. And first off, thank you, David, for this wonderful email. Um, One, we do see a LeBron James-esque career in Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the longevity, the
Hmm.
greatness, a little bit more sporadic winning, not as tightly clustered. And we still claim Jordan as the GOAT over Kareem,
Good point.
who who was kind of the GOAT. Um, but
Kareem
I
is
do want to
also a
also,
fucking asshole. Like, just
yeah,
tossing that out
yeah,
there. He like, I mean,
yeah.
Jordan was too, but like, I don't think Kareem wasn't marketable, and he also did not want to be. I think overall
Well,
good person, but he was like, I just think he hated the spotlight more than anything.
and I think what's interesting is the GOAT conversation throughout NBA history, throughout basketball history, kind of starting in the 40s with Bobby McDermott was declared the greatest of all time. Then George Mikan shows up, declared the greatest. Mikan cedes it to Bob Pettit for a hot second, and then Russell just snatches it away from him. And then you have a little bit of Russell and Wilt. But when both of them retire,
And
they
Oscar.
both kind Settle
They were
down,
into it.
settle
No,
down.
no, no, no. That was a real people really were into that in the 60s. I'll read you a billion quotes, players being like, Oscar is the greatest player of all time.
My guy, I have been deep in 60s, 70s lore. I read Oscar's autobiography to start the year. I read Loose Balls to end last year. I just
People were
finished
into that though.
Blackball. Yes,
They
but
were. I'm not
it's distracting the point here.
mm, sorry.
Both Wilt and Bill kind of seed, hey, it's the next guy. It's Kareem. He now has surpassed us. Wilt in his autobiography says that Kareem has all of his offense and all of Russell's defense. And then I think the trend would have just continued of naming the next person the GOAT, the next greatest player, because basketball continues to evolve and players do continue to get better, except for you have Kareem's insane longevity. You have Magic and Bird, who both um, have kind of more dramatic ends to their career. And so I think the league was really looking for a GOAT, and Jordan's able to step in and just snatch this away from everyone and take the crown in such a, if you want to call it a media created phenomenon, I think that's absolutely part of it. I mean, Stern wanted to build this into a star-driven league, and like him and Nike both really focused it in on him. And if LeBron came first, you know, he's not going to have benefited from the last 20 years of development and skill and technique. But if he was in that time frame, I think the writer David has a strong point that the media ecosystem around him probably has him unassailably the GOAT.
I can see that.
And then our third email from Grady is just look at the amount of players who retired. I'm going to restart that. Look at the amount of retired players per year in Jordan's career versus LeBron. More players are scared to play Bron. Nobody's scared to play the bald shoe merchant. What is
Love
your
it.
defense?
I have no defense. He's got us, dude. He's got us on the ropes right now. I've
The league
never
does
looked
have
at
more teams.
yeah, I've never looked at the retired players per year. Maybe I should check that out. On a similar note, I'll do a more comedy one. This is a pro. I think this is pro LeBron. I don't even know. This is from Kruk. Says so. Okay, so imagine you have 6 patients. This is like the Jordan 6 argument. You have
Oh,
6
I
patients
saw
with
this one. This is
common cold,
great.
and you have them all back to full health. Like it's impressive. Now imagine you have 10 patients and 4 out of the 10 have super duper cancer, and you cure this super duper cancer, and the other got shot 6 billion times or a bajillion times. You would not have a perfect record, but that's pretty impressive. And so basically saying LeBron's 4 rings are harder. He cures the super duper cancer while Jordan just cures the common cold 6 times.
So I like the thought process, and I think it's a solid thought process. Not in that Jordan cured the common cold or that Jordan had weaker finals opponents. Cora, settle down, girly. That's my big girl, Lil Barkin. But that if you look at the different eras, what LeBron support he had versus what he went up against, both teams are significantly better than what Jordan had and what Jordan went up against.
Mm.
I don't think it's common cold versus super cancer.
Super
I think
cancer.
it's
Super
like
cancer.
I think another analogy might be like fighting the common cold in the 1700s versus
Yeah.
fighting super cancer today. Like
I'd love to transition
both
this
sides
into an email we got and an argument I have against that, because this is an anti-Jordan argument, or sorry, anti-LeBron argument. This is an anti-LeBron argument from Henry.
Good man.
He basically says LeBron James, after his first stint in Cleveland, became the worst ring chaser in NBA history for over a decade. His strategy for greatness essentially became walking up to owners and demanding they surrender their entire war chest to him so they can win 1 ring in 4 years. Everywhere LeBron goes, he absolutely decimates the franchise and then leaves. And so it's interesting because when people say like, "Oh, LeBron had to face the Warriors," really, like Jordan was the Warriors. The '90s Bulls were the Warriors of the '90s, and I think him staying with that one team for almost his entire career allowed them to develop into that super duper team, where I think LeBron's strategy of jumping ship and just like saying like, hey guys, we need to like all in, let's go all in, like let's like, you better, like him threatening the Lakers even today to trade all their shit. I saw a rumor a week ago that D'Lo's on the trade block again. That poor dude. I
He
think
lives there.
prevent like that's why I think like that's why LeBron didn't develop the super duper team, and a team that stuck together and a team that built what they had did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. There are some interesting cap mechanics with Jordan retiring and then coming back, where they were able to then fill his salary and build out a full team. There also was
Yeah,
much less stringent cap rules. Like, look at Jordan's salary that final year. He is single-handedly getting paid more than the entire salary cap.
yeah, he is.
It's fucking
Hey, imagine
ridiculous.
the dynamics of that in the locker room, though. I mean, they handled it. They handled it.
Yeah, I mean
It's tough.
Pippen
It's Pippen didn't
Pippen
take it
didn't
all
want to
too
be there.
well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but like Rodman, I guess Rodman handled it well. But I think like you get the late '80s. I think it was 1 second. I have this stat and I want to find it. Dun, 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 dun. In the playoffs from '86 to '90, Jordan averaged 4-7 on 61% true shooting against everyone but the Pistons. Now, like you have that stretch where it's like this guy is literally unguardable unless it's like the best
Mhm.
defense of that era. Um, and then you have the early '90s, you have the 3P, and he is just like by far the best player in basketball. Then you get like the old man 3P, like everything you want, you can have. Um, I guess that's where I'm at with it, and yeah, I don't know if I'll ever be convinced otherwise.
I'm getting very close on just the longevity aspect of LeBron, starting
Hmm.
to outweigh it. I think at this point, if you if you had the time machine game, LeBron beats
Hmm.
Jordan. Just from the years
Sure.
of development and advancements in NBA skill sets,
Hmm.
the training aspects, he is bigger, stronger, faster than Jordan. I do not think he reaches that peak, and I don't think it's like Jordan has the best peak and LeBron has the second best peak. I know you're working your way through the peak series. I'm not going to ask you to step on it and spoil it, but I feel like there's three or four other guys, maybe two or three other guys in between. So the fact that it's LeBron has this amazing longevity and Jordan doesn't, I'm okay still having Jordan there. But
Hmm.
each season that LeBron continues to put up, the like there's erosion on the moat around
Yeah.
this conversation. So I'm not there yet, but I'm getting
It's
very
just like
close.
my least favorite kind of erosion where it's just LeBron captaining a shitty 45 win Lakers team every year. It's going to lose in the first round. It's just so not convincing. It just doesn't like it doesn't move the needle all too much for me. Um I think like if he makes I think if you can get to the finals one more time, I'm in. And I'll say that. And I think I'm just like I think that's where I'm at. Like, can we get there one more time?
The bar is still not even that high for me. It's keep
Conference
playing at
finals?
this level. Not even. It's just keep playing at this level.
Yeah.
Well, for a few more
Eventually.
years. Just
Yeah. If
what
he
we're
gets
seeing
to
has never
the
been done
double
before.
all NBA teams, then I'll concede. But it's so tricky. Okay. Are we good?
I think we're good there.
Shit.
The next email that I've got marked out is
Mhm.
talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Okay,
Do
I
you
have
have
a couple
anyone in
before that.
between? Okay, let's
Yeah,
talk
I
about who you
have
got before that.
so the first one is from user 4358728886557. Thank you.
Hell yeah, 6557.
Says Shaq better than Tim, peaks so much higher and has similar accolades. I love Shaq, and I've swung so far on this pendulum, especially with doing the peak series and just looking into that. What the discourse around Shaq was during the early 2000s, and also just he's the second best center of the 90s, and then he's the best center of the 2000s. He peaks so ridiculously high. He wins 4 titles, he makes 5 finals. He definitely peaked higher than Duncan, and so, you say is the longevity that much better? where you're in on that. But I think you get to a point where I get so into these players that I wish they all could be in the top 10. I wish they all could be in the top 5, but
Mhm.
there's only so many spots. We have Duncan and then Shaq. I'd like to keep it there. I think we're gonna keep it there, but I just want that person to know that I respect that.
I got a TikTok message
Mhm.
and I can't find it, but it was a similar case. This of someone coming in and just saying, "Hey, with Shaq's absolute dominant peak, and that 01 to 02, I don't think I've ever seen something like this in history, where someone says, if I got to play with this guy, I would have rings." And you hear that from Paul Pierce, from Tracy McGrady, from
Mhm.
multiple other guys that are just like, we all want to play with Shaq because we know we won't win a ring without him, and we know if we play with him, we will. And it's like a lot of Kobe envy. You get Ray Allen also in there. That's just like,
Mhm.
if I got to play with Shaq, I would win rings. And and it's just so pervasive, that thought process, that I wouldn't hate this flip flop. The Matrix does have them flip flopped up here. It actually has Duncan down a little bit more. Um, I think when we started this, I had Shaq at 5, but that's how close I am. Do you want to make
Mhm.
this flip? I wouldn't hate it.
No, I don't think I do. I think with Duncan, you get like I think honestly you get down to a leadership and demeanor part where the end result is more championships and is more winning. Even though I think Duncan isn't necessarily a better player, um, what Duncan is able to do, the way he got along with his teammates, the way he was the foundation of 18 years of 50-win basketball, I think puts him above Shaq. Um, that's kind of where I'm at, where I just feel like Shaq really couldn't get out of his own way. The way I mean, Orlando kind of fucked that up, but um, he's not healthy enough. He doesn't take basketball seriously enough to
Yeah.
solidify top 5 to me. And I think like even though you go championship, 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 conference finals in '03, or did they lose in this? I forget if they lose in the second round.
Um, they lose to the Spurs. I think it's the second round was one of those wonky
Yeah,
years where,
second round. But eventual
because
loose eventual champs, finals appearance, conference finals in '05 with the Heat, championship in '06. Like if you have Shaq on the team, like your chances are really good, man. Like obviously the talent's around him, but he was like kind of the superstar in the league during that stretch. Um, and
well,
so I
and
feel like go ahead.
one of the big knocks on Shaq in the all-time conversations is that he gets swept a lot. He gets
Yeah,
swept.
he does.
But
Like
part of it
six
is that the
times.
teams that sweep him leading up to him winning, it's like he gets swept by the Rockets when they win. He gets swept by the Jazz both times in their route to the finals. He gets swept, I want to say by the
96
Spurs in
Bulls.
'99. It the teams that sweep him are some of the historic teams that we talk about, some of the teams that make the finals. It's not like he gets this first round bounce,
Mhm.
like a lot of guys do. So like,
Mhm.
yes, it's a sweep, but he's getting swept by really good teams.
No, sure. I think I feel great about Shaq at 6. I think it's like the one guy I think Bill Simmons gets really wrong. I was reading that section of his book again. Also, he spelled Jason Terry's name wrong in that book. Just toss that out. I take it to the bathroom with me occasionally. He spelled it with an A, like Tari. And I'm just
Huh.
like, how have I never noticed this before? Like, is there a Jason Tari? Um,
That's got to be like a editor typo. I
oh,
mean,
I don't blame him. He wrote the fucking book. I'd bet a
sure,
million misspellings, but
sure.
um, I think with I think like the free throw thing I think the free throw thing is a little overblown.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
I think
if the best way to stop a guy is to foul out half your roster and employ big dudes from countries whose name, like, you're just employing guys to hack a Shack this guy. He's
I
he's
think it was
funding villages in parts of the world unknown.
I
Uh,
think it was Ostertag that said he got to play an extra 5 years because Shaq. So it was
I,
one of those dudes that was like, "Yeah, I stayed in way longer than I planned on or would have," just because it was like, "Hey, like I need to, yeah, like someone has to guard this guy."
I think people also said that Shaq took 5 years off of their career with the pounding. So helps some, hurts others. I actually
Mhm.
did realize I have a Curry comment. Do you have anything prior to Curry?
I do have a Curry comment. I have one as well. Do
Okay.
you wanna go first?
Is it from, well, So I found this one on your TikTok
Mm,
page, and it's from a man whose username is 4 emojis. So I just wrote it down. It is 4 cups of milk from TikTok,
I did not
and he
get
just
that. I
wanted
did
to
not.
know.
I did not screenshot that one.
He just wanted to know, why is Curry over Wilt and Hakeem, and when they have somewhat similar careers.
Why is Curry over Wilt and Hakeem?
Wilt and Hakeem. Wilt Chamberlain,
I
Hakeem
think
Olajuwon.
the contributions to winning, what's how the way Steph elevates his teams is far more than Will Chamberlain did, is far more than Hakeem did. The peaks, I actually think, like, I mean, I'm doing the series right now, but I actually think those guys peaked higher if we're just talking like a 3-year stretch. But
Mhm.
overall, for an entire career, you're looking at Steph like make 2015 finals, 16 finals, 17 championship, 18 championship, 19 finals, 22 finals. I mean, championship. And so you just over and over and over again, what's most impressed me about Steph is the teammates. Like Durant comes and goes, they rebuild in 2020. They have this 2 timeline thing going on. No matter what's going on, I've never heard any complaining from Steph, and they've won 4 titles and made 7 finals. Like that's what's most impressive. Is it 7 finals or 6 finals?
6. 6,
Six.
because they
Four.
lost 2.
Four
Who won 4?
championships, 6 finals. Like it's the dynasty of this era. Like, and it's gonna be really hard to replicate, possibly like forever, given the new CBA. Um, that's what it's in it for me. Where I think Hakeem makes 1 finals and then falls off the map for basically like 9 years, then comes back. Um, you have a really brief 3-year stretch of excellence, but I think for a whole career, you're looking at Steph Curry being the more consistent contributor.
Yeah. I just to touch on it briefly, Curry's offensive movement generates such an offense that everyone on his team is able to elevate their games and be at a higher functioning level. It's like Steve Nash, but off ball. He doesn't have to be facilitating as much. Will you have video game stats, but it doesn't have that same level of impact despite the higher individual numbers. Because he's a black hole. When he touches it, it's gone.
Mhm.
Hakeem has similar black holeness for the early stretch of his career. You see Hakeem lose in the playoffs. Teams that are all better than his team. It's like 6 seed versus 3 seeds, but he's not losing to better players, and he's not elevating the level of his teammates. Later, when
Mhm.
they get Rudy Tomjanovich, whether it's an evolution of Hakeem's game or the synergy of the two, he starts passing the ball more. He starts trusting in his teammates more. And part of that, he is, I forget if it's 91 or 92, where he's hurt, plays 50 something games. The team plays fairly well without him. Otis Thorpe becomes an all star without him. Um, Kenny the Jet Smith has his like best year outside of his first year in Sacramento, and Hakeem starts to trust them more. And I think empowering your teammates when there's just 5 people on the court is really impactful. And so it's a bit of the eye test. It's a bit of the impact of these guys. That's why we have Curry over those two.
Steph is just the best at that in this era, honestly, empowering, like really believing in his teammates. I mean, we've seen Draymond Green went to the psychiatric ward for a good month. Klay Thompson fell off a cliff and then is re-signed elsewhere. Not a fucking word, like not a peep on those guys at any point. Has Steph been like, really wish Draymond didn't kick LeBron in the nuts in the finals I was supposed to win? Like that would have been nice. Where I feel like
Mm-hmm.
other superstars throughout history, Shaq would have had a fucking book. Shaq would have written a book called "I Wish Draymond Green Didn't Kick Didn't Kick LeBron in the Nuts." Like, so I feel like other superstars wouldn't have handled that well, and I think the 2022 ring solidifies so much for Steph. He gets his
Mm-hmm.
Finals MVP. He finally gets it off his back, but also shows like having patience, trusting your teammates, empowering them even when they're having a really hard time, which they were, which like Clay and Draymond were in the 2022 playoffs, pays off. You can get that title, and so I feel pretty good about stuff there. I had another one. This is why specifically is Curry over Wilt when Curry wasn't the clear best player on most of his rings and not an elite 2A player. Um, you get
Is
good.
is it from 4 cups of milk? I just
No,
love
it's
that
actually
guy's little user handle.
it says Jacob. This is from Jacob.
Yeah, not as
Um,
cool. Could have been 4 cups of milk.
yeah, yeah. Smoke emojis is a nice username. I think with Steph, he's the best player on the 2015 team.
Mhm.
The 2017 team is such an anomaly that not being the best player doesn't really hurt him to me, I guess. It's not exactly like, the crowning achievement. Holy shit, you won with the most overpowered team ever, but it's still a huge positive. Same with 2018. I think the big thing is he's not better than Durant in an 18 or 17 or 18, but he won before and after him.
Mhm.
He didn't
And
didn't need it.
I will say, as an individual talent, you lace him up with 4 guys from the Y, Durant is better. Durant
Mhm,
throughout that stretch is better.
mhm.
But Curry's impact on that Warriors is what makes them go. Curry's his unselfishness, his off-ball movement, his shooting, his spacing, all of that. Durant is a better talent. You do not get that same, like, if you replace if you had to replace Curry with Durant, I don't know that they win titles. And they
Mhm.
did win it with Curry and without Durant. I will
Yeah.
also just say Wilt is not the best player on 2 of his titles teams. Like, he is
Yeah.
the best on 1. But the Lakers team,
He wins
I
Finals
I
MVP, but I think it's still West. I mean, I think
I think it's
it's
still West. Yeah.
okay. My next comment, let me see. I have a Dirk one and I have a Garnett one, and that can kind of feed into the Giannis piece. We
Yeah.
have Dirk and so what would you like to do first?
Well, so this whole cluster right here,
Mhm.
this Malone to Barkley got a lot of emails in here. And actually, I want to say that this is kind of what kicked it off. Is
Mhm.
me wanting to do these emails. Is I got this beautiful, let's see how many word email this is from Adam.
From Adam. Shout out Adam.
Yeah, 661. Just like God, we started things off with an Adam, and that's how you know this list is perfect. Hopefully, the serpent doesn't ruin it.
Keep
Um,
going.
well, it just he was particularly upset about Giannis versus Malone, and not even upset.
Mhm.
He wrote a very nice his piece about how Malone is a playoff dropper and how it's Stockton dragging him through. And I would push back pick on some of that. There's several series that you can find where Stockton drops and Malone is playing fantastically. Um, and he just wanted to know what it would take for Giannis to catch Malone. And I think when we did our power forwards revision, um, we were very close and we were a little saddened to just say, like, we need to see another good year. We need to
Mhm.
see a good playoff push. But I think we're both rooting for Giannis to get him over it. And then we received another really great Giannis email from William, who William is working on a 3-year peak series for his friends, and
Mhm.
has these beautiful write-ups. And I'd love to read more of those, William, if you want to send them in. Um, I think the peak of Giannis is absolutely super high. I think I got into a Giannis versus Dwayne Wade debate, and the guy was saying, "Well, Wade couldn't get All-Star or couldn't get All NBA first teams or MVP conversation because he's behind Kobe and LeBron and Nash." And I'm like, "Yeah, but Giannis is the Kobe, LeBron, and Nash of the last 5, 6 years. I think that can't be
Mhm.
understated. Top tens, top 15s are getting more crowded each year that this goes on. We have more really great players. So I'm very comfortable with the rankings we have them. But what are your Dirk and your Garnett pieces? Because I do also have a Garnett piece.
I'll give a shout out to Adam again. The splash on TikTok, he had messaged me, making sure that we had gotten an email, and I much appreciated. Um, it's like I want to put Giannis above all these guys so badly. I feel like I've
Hmm.
drawn this line in the sand. We have where it's like let's see it in the playoffs one more time, um, and it just hasn't really come to fruition. Um, the Durka comment I have is from Kason Wallace Enjoyer, friend of the pod, certainly. He said, I have Dirk over Jazz player because in my list I just said Jazz player. It deflects some of the Karl Malone hate because his ring was so unbelievable. And although Jazz player had some insane longevity and a very high peak, his lack of winning is really important when deciding the list. It's interesting. I feel like the Dirk's ring is incredible. How, how do you feel about that? I just want to go over the 2011 championship real quick. That year, he's second team All NBA. He's sixth in MVP voting. He averages 28 points, 8 boards, and 2.5 assists on 49, 46, and 94 splits. Absurdly efficient. They beat a 50-win Blazers team in the first round. They sweep the defending champion Lakers. They whoop ass on Kevin Durant and the Baby Thunder. And then they have a huge upset against the Heatles, of course. I want to note that conference finals against the Thunder, averaging 32 points on 56% shooting that series, excuse me, for Dirk. Is that championship run enough? Because we really don't see Malone put anything like that together. And like another email brought to our attention, Karl Malone has bad playoff moments, man. Like for someone who's a 50-win
Yeah.
season every year, his playoff record is close to 500. He loses in the first round a bunch. You have the 2 finals appearances and they lose. What are you thinking?
So I really would love to get someone over Karl Malone. It's just not a fun stance to be in. Of
Yeah,
Malone has it, but I really
we
do
got to
think
leave
Malone
with
has just
something.
a greater longevity. Well, and
I'm leaving with something. I'm leaving with something.
you want to leave the top 20? All right, you Dirk it is.
Wouldn't it be? Yeah, wouldn't it be fun to argue for Dirk's 2011 ring being like just that's one of the greatest rings ever? That's one of the Pantheon 8 finals performances. Isn't that cool?
That is kind of cool.
It's way cooler, right? It's way cooler.
And if we're just going to talk about their rings, I think
Yeah.
Giannis's ring is better. I think what Giannis did en route to that championship, but he doesn't have the longevity of Dirk yet. I think Garnett's is the worst of the Dirk, Giannis, Garnett rings.
Mhm.
And do you have a Garnett piece that you want to read? Because we got a nice email on it that I'm up for reading.
Sure. This is what I'll say. Let me pull up one thing real quick. Bum, 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 bum. And I don't mind obviously spending our time in the early parts of the list. It's kind of all we got. I think we're the only fucking freakazoids on Earth that care that care to go this deep. And so I know, like, the people are focused on the early parts of the list. I love it. I'm all about that. And I think obviously that's the most engaging and the most prominent portions of the list.
Mhm.
This is from username Head, just HEAD. Garnett should be
Not
like
even
4
an
spots
emoji?
higher. No. Garnett should be
Mm.
like 4 spots higher. It isn't his fault he got drafted to a terrible team. A very, very straightforward argument. I want to say for Garnett, his on and off numbers are preposterous throughout his entire career. A career of plus 11.3, getting over into the 20s during his peak in 03 and 04. The Wolves basically fluctuate from a very like a good team with Garnett on the floor to the worst team you've ever seen in your life with him off the floor, and that's they get absolutely destroyed by David Stern for the Joe Smith contract. They seemingly make the wrong decision every single time, such as choosing Terrell Brandon over Chauncey Billups, and then Brandon immediately gets hurt and never plays again. That's a pretty notable one. Or the Latrell Sprewell contract debacle where he says he needs to feed his family and then never comes back.
You know what's
Garnett
hilarious
gets
about that?
what? The
Do you know
contract
how much?
number
Yeah, the contract number. Do you know what it
was like
was?
4 for 60 or something.
They had offered him like 5 mil a year, and he's like, "I need 11 million or something,"
Mm.
thing like that. And it's like that's Luke Kennard money right now.
He's got
That's
a
where we
family to
got him.
feed. The on off numbers are just staggering. I think that's kind of the big thing is I do think he's given the shortest end of the stick, but I feel like even given that, like for someone that loses in the first round like 9 straight times, I think we factored that in.
Yeah.
That he's next to that he's right there, that next to Karl Malone, who went to the playoffs every season, that got to play with all those guys. I think they're about as good as each other.
So the email that we got from Jeremy is this is probably my personal criteria speaking, but I value peak a lot and the ability to create the best situations out of your teammates. Therefore, in my opinion, KG is 15 and Hakeem is top 5. And he goes in to kind of explain a little bit more about what he means. He's like, what I think this means is KG's teams in his peak could do literally nothing in KG's teams in his peak could literally not do anything substantial if KG wasn't the best scorer, playmaker, defender at times. He gets knocked back a bit because of his overall success in his peak wasn't as good, but none of the guys you have immediately ahead of him, like Giannis, Dirk, or Karl, have needed to play so many different roles on the basketball court and do it at superstar level just to move their subpar roster up a bit. It's a strong case, and I think the problem with it that I have is that people like to say a lot of what if. What if he had better teammates? What if he had all of these other things, which are hypotheticals that we never get to see. But in Boston, we do get to see him start to play with some better players. It's the back part of his career. All of his other numbers come down. He is not an elite offensive player, neither as a passer, although he's very good as a passer. As a scorer, not as he is not on the Shaq, the Dunk, and that level of scoring, or the Dirk level, but his team doesn't have anyone else, so he is pushed to do this. He brings up a series against the Kings where in Game 7, Garnett puts up 32 points, 21 boards, 2 assists, 4 steals, and 5 blocks, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. We have the Chris Webber game just like that. It's not in that conference finals, but we brought up on our power forward pod, the original one, that he has to do a lot because he doesn't have the teammates. But if he has the teammates, he's not doing as much, and you don't get to use both arguments of look at this great statistical conversation and look at this, like, he would have won more. He would not have produced the same statistics if he was winning more. Like that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah. It's such a tough thing to isolate because no other star really gets in those situations. I think of our top 10 power forwards of all time. We have, well, now it's Dirk. Let's go. Dirk, number 1. We'll count them. We'll throw Duncan in there. Duncan, Dirk, Karl Malone, Giannis, Garnett, Barkley, Pettit, Dolph Schayes, Elvin Hayes, Anthony Davis, and Chris Webber. I think Garnett is the worst offensive, like the worst scorer out of any of those guys. And that kind of comes back to him where he is kind of miscast as this offensive number 1. And had he gotten a chance to do what he did in Boston later on, maybe you see something differently. But I think we have it's all factored in, man. The market's factored in already. We understand that. It wasn't his career did not go how it should have gone, but I think we have a good idea of what caliber of player he was.
And I will just say, and part of this is that he has a versatility. He's a jack of all trades, but not really super great at one thing, which makes it a little bit, on the offensive end, he's not really great at the one thing that gives you a clear identity to build around. Young Garnett, go watch I forget it's the 97 or the 98 All-Star game. It's on NBA League Pass. It's really fun to watch. He's super young, and it's like if you gave Ben Simmons like 3 shots of adrenaline and 4 vodka Red Bulls and just let him loose. He's everywhere. The arms are insane. He's playmaking. But he also, like, what do you pair with that? Do you do a pick and roll point guard style? Do you try to post him up? Well, he's not particularly great at post up. Do you do mid-range ISO scoring? The fact that he was so good at so many little things, but not great at any one thing, made it very hard to build around him. And that's why you see the Timberwolves get caught for tampering, signing Joe Smith, who plays the same position, is because they're like, well, maybe Garnett's more of a 3 and Joe is the best guy we can get in. And there's problems there that the versatility doesn't just solve. I love Garnett, but I think that's just a real thing that we have to look at and consider.
Okay. All right. What do we got? Giannis time?
I think we kind of did the talk about Giannis in that cluster. I didn't fully read any of these things.
Gotta touch on. Just give me a paragraph from the 3-year peak one.
The 3-year peak one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In 2022, Giannis led the league in opponents' field goal percentage, limiting them to 36.3%, the lowest ever since they started tracking this in the restricted area. His offensive field goal percentage was This is 5% lower than anyone else. He led the league in defensive RPM, win shares, there's defensive box plus minus, defensive PIPM. The Bucks had the lowest points allowed per 100 possessions and the highest net rating. He won DPOY and became the third player ever with Hakeem and Jordan to win both MVP and DPOY. He was the best defensive player in the league, but what most people fail to understand is how good Giannis was and is offensively. Giannis averaged 30, 15, and 5, playing just 30 minutes. It's the third highest points per minute in NBA history, behind Wilt's 50 and Harden's 36. I feel like Embiid just got in there, but both seasons seen as the greatest NBA scoring seasons in history. Giannis then had his fourth highest ever in 2023, and his 2022 year was just about Luka's in 2024. This continued in the postseason, and there's more, but I think you get the drift.
Giannis is unbelievable. I think he will be the best power forward ever, and I think we're looking it down the barrel with that. Why we've decided to put our heels in the ground, we'll never know the answer to that. I think Giannis, his offense is really good, but I think it's a little overblown. Looking at his cleaning the glass numbers, like per 100 possessions, he is obviously a positive impact on his team's offense, but the numbers aren't crazy. He peaked as an offensive impact player this season at 9.2. In 2019, he was just plus 3.4, then plus 3, then plus 2.7, in the 70s for the percentile, which is like a good number, right? But I think what makes Giannis so special is he can be the 1A offensively, and he anchors the defense. I think he is as good defensively as Garnett. Like, I think he's better offensively than Garnett and a little bit worse defensively, but that offensive value allows him to be the best player on a title team, hands down, dominate like he did in the 2021 run. Does that make sense? Like, you get more offense but less defense, but I actually prefer the offense in this scenario.
Absolutely. And he doesn't provide the versatility of Garnett. I feel like that's gonna be the first pushback someone will say, is that Garnett is a more versatile defender. But I wanted to combine a couple of comments that we received here, and I should have done it earlier. But I did get one person pushing that says Giannis should be over Kevin Durant, and a couple of people between yours and mine were saying, why is there this huge gap between Giannis and Jokic? And to be, it's the third MVP. It's another good playoff push. What do you think about the idea of Giannis getting up into this tier? Because I can see it happening within a year or two.
I think he'll be there. I want it so bad. He was my MVP pick, dude. Maybe that's why I'm hesitant, because I thought he'd win MVP this year and then he didn't. And I'm like, you disappointed me. You let me down. Like, you embarrassed me in front of my friends. Giannis has won 8 playoff series. How many playoff series has Jokic won?
I would not imagine more than that. I would imagine it's pretty close.
I think
Jokic had was it Western Conference Finals run in the bubble?
Yeah, he actually has a 9. So one more, but I think the big thing is, and we cannot ignore this. In 2019, the Raptors put up a wall around the basket and they stuffed Giannis offensively. In 2020, the Heat ran Giannis and that legendary Bucks team into the ground. Those are bad playoff losses where Giannis really struggled to remain effective offensively, and the ability to just get past anyone and just power through people is a little shaky in the playoffs. And I think he figures that out later on. But when your MVP seasons aren't your best playoff runs, it's hard to mix and match what's really going on. I do think, if you say what's the difference, it's an MVP, dude. Like, it's the fact that Giannis was the third or fourth best player in the world this season, and Jokic is the best. And that's a sizable gap. Like, that matters. Being the best, I think Jokic he's the best player this year. He's the best player last year. Probably his best player before that. But okay, I feel good. So Dirk's heading up because we love 2011.
Dirk's heading up because we love 2011, and Charles Barkley's heading down.
Me. Sorry,
we're taking some changes. We got this wonderful email from Evan. Hello, esteemed basketball ranker. I assume
Yes.
you mean plural. I do exist. It's not just this beautiful mustached man.
That's fine.
Um, why is Charles Barkley several spaces higher than Harden when they have very similar resumes? One finals appearance, one MVP, while Harden has slightly better longevity and peaked way higher. I don't know if I'm suggesting a swap of the two, but something to consider. And I do think it's something worth considering here. And the more I look at it, I wouldn't hate Barkley falling all the way down. He has his amazing MVP run, and the fact that the MVP run and the finals come in the same year where he's at that level, whereas Harden gets to the finals at sixth man, that is a sizable difference. But
Hmm.
I want to ask you this:
Hmm.
is what Harden did against the KD Warriors more impressive than what Barkley did against the Jordan Bulls? Because I would say yes.
I'm gonna say possibly, but no. But probably. I think that the big thing is that's not the
Possibly, but
question.
no.
That's not the question we're trying to answer. I think it's really close. I think Barkley was in finals. I think the big thing is Barkley um, took the 93 Lakers, whooped their ass, beat on the 93 Spurs, beat on the 93 Supersonics, averaging like 24 and 14. Like Barkley proved without a doubt he can play well in the playoffs. And he did that throughout his career. I don't think there's any like, oh, Barkley's a choker. Barkley like flamed out here or there. But that's Harden's thing, dude. Like for every good playoff moment, you get a bad one from Harden. Like he has these bad playoff series. That's the problem with James Harden. Like you can say he has a better peak, but I just feel like for Barkley, it's just more consistent. It's just far more consistent. Um, and honestly, his peak isn't even like doesn't even involve like 93. I think it's actually earlier in Philly. Um, where he let's take I had this written down somewhere.
If you want to do his
Um,
best 3 seasons, if
yeah,
you want to do Barkley's best 3 seasons, yes, it is in Philly.
80, 89, 90.
But
Yeah.
I think that 93 season,
So you have
I
to
would
have
say the
that, right?
93 season is still his best year.
Barkley's
Eh,
just he is such an offensive machine, and obviously Harden is too. But I'm gonna say I'm gonna stop fucking rambling and say Charles Barkley's game translates to the playoffs better.
there's some pretty sizable drops in efficiency for Barkley. Um,
Is there?
I don't, let's see what I'm gonna grab his true shooting. So I'm just looking at field goal, and that's messy. Drops from 61% true shooting down to 58. Um, you are playing better teams, but when you talk about those teams that he ran through, who
Mhm,
in '93, I heard the Lakers mentioned in there, the post
mhm,
Magic Lakers. That's and the post Magic Lakers. If you want to talk about run through, they pushed him to 7 games,
mhm,
or not 7 games. They pushed him. It's a best of 5. They pushed him to 5, running through Seattle, who pushes him to 7. Um, Barkley sub 50% field goal percentage in 3 of those runs, doesn't break 30% from 3, which is what's dragging it down. It's not like he's putting up a ton, but is the worst. It's him or Westbrook for like the worst 3-point shooter when you start putting volumes in there. I
who gives a shit? Who fucking cares about three-point shooting, though? Like, seriously, Barkley leads the league in two-point percentage, like, 6 times. I think you're like, Harden had the Warriors to get there. Barkley had the Bulls. He plays them. He plays Jordan 3 times
Yeah,
in the playoffs, and he loses. Like, he's part of that. And so I think their like tough competition they couldn't get over is the same. And Barkley played him more. Um, in 1990, in the Eastern Conference semis, Barkley and his two-seeded Sixers, he averages 24, 17, and 5 on 53% shooting. And you lose to the Bulls because Jordan's at his absolute apex. He's averaging 43 a night in that series. Like you can't. What do you want from him? Like I think honestly think like that's a more unfair matchup than what the Rockets had built. Where I think you get Barkley dragging a pretty bad Sixers roster to the 2 seed. Um, and
I,
then
I
lose
so hard.
eventual champ. Go ahead.
I don't know. ISO Harden going up against the KD Durant Warriors, the most unfair team. You're talking about the
Mhm,
90s Bulls, like 1990s Bulls, who
mhm.
lose to the Pistons. Um,
Sure.
you know, I I so I had this other thought. Um,
Okay.
which is we were fairly harsh on Ewing and Robinson,
Yeah.
but if we look back at like
Oh.
past rankings, Barkley hasn't moved. And there are more guys who keep jumping up like into the stratosphere. And we haven't really pushed Barkley down.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of just you and I are both very deep into these rankings. We look at a lot of people's rankings, we look at a lot of this, and like some things don't get reassessed. And the more I looked back in this, I'm like, Harden and Barkley are the same guy. They have the same measurements. And Harden has significantly better regular seasons, and you might be able to say Barkley has better playoffs. He doesn't flame out as much in the playoffs, but I don't know. I'm closer. I think we either need to move Harden up or Barkley down.
I
Um,
mean, let me take a look at this. Fucking. I think like I could be convinced of Harden over Elgin Baylor if you want to leave us something, but I feel like you say like has less playoff flameouts. Like we're talking about James Harden day. Like James Harden eats playoff flameouts for breakfast. Like that's his thing. Like you can. I've argued for the 2019 season. I think he was the best player in basketball that year. Like good for him, right? But like Harden is going to get to the playoffs and he's gonna play like shit. You're gonna get those series
okay.
like 50% of the time. Like that's my problem.
Okay. Can we at least get him over Bob Pettit as well?
Okay, fine.
There we go. We're
Eh,
narrowing the gap. Um, but who sent us this email? I have it. Uh, we're gonna thank you and apologize for Aaron's dismissiveness. Evan, thank you, Evan, for your kindness. And
I'm
I'm assuming now
sorry.
that I am the esteemed basketball ranker, and he doesn't know
Yeah,
you exist.
that's true. I had one more. I had a good this one says, I think we're ready for this. Let me know if it's too early. No David Robinson in the top 30. He's still one of
Okay.
the only three players to win DPOY MVP and a title, not to mention having a scoring title, rebounding title, and blocks title. This is from the Torontonian immigrant. Shout out Toronto. The
Shout
Robinson
out
piece is so
immigration.
shout out immigration. That's the David Robinson piece is so interesting, where you have these I think seven seasons between his rookie year and his devastating leg injury,
Hmm.
and they're so insane statistically, and he is a regular season powerhouse. But
Hmm.
they all end with him getting his ass whooped in some embarrassing fashion. Um, I think it goes back to the playoffs where I feel like I almost would like Robinson higher. Um, da, da, da.
Are we
Let
gonna
me
make the flip? We flipping him and Patrick Ewing?
dude. I don't know if people remember that argument, but one second. Like in 1990 in 1991. His season ends. He averages 26 points tonight on nearly 70% shooting, but the Warriors just go small and they smoke 'em. They run the Spurs out of the gym. Robinson can't impact the game defensively anymore. They lose that series in 4 games. In 94, he averages 20 points on 41% shooting. Holy choke job. And they lose in 4 against Utah. In 95, his MVP season, he just gets whooped by Hakeem, averaging 24 on 45% shooting. In 96, Utah's back to embarrass him again. He averages 19 points on 48% shooting. It might be the greatest playoff drop-offs we've ever seen. Like it's like he goes from 30 and 12, and this is the best player in the world, to like can't even find a way to impact these games. I just think that he according to esteemed basketball historians, like haters, like real haters, he struggled to guard his guys straight up and he couldn't generate offense with the ball in his hands. And I think those are the issues you have.
Struggling to score against the Utah Jazz in that era as a big man, depending on who they're playing. I get my
Who's their
Jazz years
center?
mixed up.
They don't have a
It's
center.
either well, it's you could get late stages Mark Eaton, who is a defensive block master, but is not mobile. And Ewing should be mobile enough to get, or not Ewing, Robinson should be mobile enough to get around him. It's Greg Foster, or I think he's before Greg Ostertag. The years that we're talking
It's
about
Felton
are
Spencer.
pre-Ostertag.
Felton
Felton
Spencer.
Spence. Yeah.
But I think what makes Robinson so good is you get the regular season crazies, but then when Duncan comes in, he's like, thank God I don't have to be the guy on offense anymore. He goes into this number 2 role. It is absolutely perfect because for his offensive shortcomings, he's legitimately great defensively. He was one of the best defensive bigs, and he could put him on Shaq. He could handle that size, and that's made the Spurs so dangerous.
It's what you would probably see with Kevin Garnett, to get back to the earlier topic of if you got Garnett more help, he stops being this offensive force and really gets to focus on what he is best at. David Robinson was always miscast as being the offensive guy. Is there something you want to do with him here?
Can we say move Ewing and Robinson up together and above Dolph Schayes?
Sure, we can slip Schayes back to 37. Move these guys up a hair.
Shout out Dolph Schayes, like the first player to 20,000 points. One of the great longevity pieces. Like the first player to play a really long time. What can we say other than it's a weaker era? It's 50s ball.
Yeah,
I think I've seen other lists. I've looked through them all. We are really high on Dolph Schayes. Like no one has him in the 30s. This is like a 60s, like or 50s, 60s maybe.
Sure.
So I think we've already done our due diligence. Shout out Dolph Schayes. We'll keep him there.
I do want to just touch on another thing in this list, because in the comments that you read, they say he's an MVP, a DPOY, and a champion.
Yeah.
He is an MVP and a DPOY. He is a champion much later. Yeah. And I got a similar comment about Isaiah Thomas being behind Kuzi, where he lists, Isaiah has all these awards and he's a 2-time champion.
Yeah.
Kuzi was an MVP the year that Kuzi ran into the title. Kuzi leads the league in assists per game, like 8 years. They're counted differently. The stats don't quite compare if you just do a stat that side by side. Isaiah's chip, I feel like, is one of the most overrated things for a player, because people say he went through Jordan, Bird, and Magic, and he did, but it's also a very different team aspect that they have, where it's not like Jordan leading the Bulls. It's Isaiah and the Pistons. It's the whole bad boys thing, and I think people stack up those resumes without looking at the years in which things are achieved, and that tends to overrate guys, and that's where I think the Robinson and the Thomas overration generally comes from.
They just take he was great in the early to mid 80s, and then he won titles in the late 80s, and they combine it all into one thing. But Thomas isn't even the Piston getting all NBA votes at the guard spot. It's Dumars. And so while I think Isaiah Thomas is amazing, they built like the best team around him, and they had a better guard than him. And so I think you have, it's so hard to describe. It's closer to the 04 Pistons, basically, like supercharged 04 Pistons, where it's like, I don't really know who the best player on this team is, but there's a lot of good stuff going along.
I would still say he's the best player. I wouldn't call Dumars better, but there is the debate. It's more debatable. It's like when you looked at the bubble finals, and people were like, should it be Anthony Davis? And you're like, it's not.
I thought it should be. I thought it.
Yeah.
When I was watching that live, I actually was like, "Holy shit, LeBron's gonna lose this Finals MVP. What does this mean for basketball discourse?" They fucking gave it to him anyways. Those cowards.
Before we slip away here, we did get an email about Jason Tatum from our good buddy Ori over at the Hoop Social. He said, I noticed Jason Tatum is already 58th. As far as great Celtics are concerned, do you imagine he gets to the John Havlicek, Bob Cousy era by the time his career is over? So a little bit more of a hypothetical, but I wanted to honor the emails.
Yeah. Hmm. No. No. I think it's so tricky. Like Havlicek wins 8 championships and he loses 0 finals. Yeah, he has just such an insane track record, such an insane resume. Tatum's already like he's 26, just won his
Hmm.
first ring. The Celtics are probably going to win another one. I think you're going to look at Jason Tatum like multi-time champ by the end of his career.
Hmm.
And I think he will be someone that slips. I can picture him kind of settling in like next to Drexler pretty soon. Like I feel like that's a career like around there. I think the issue with Tatum is Tatum a top 5 player right now to you? Is he
That's the
5th?
thing. That's
Is
the
he 5th?
thing. I don't think so.
Right? And so it's like you're gonna look at Tatum's gonna be part of a lot of great stuff, but
Hmm.
I think his lack of being at the top, being the like no one on fucking earth is gonna say that Jason Tatum is the best player in basketball, even if he wins the title next year. It's not gonna happen. And like it's not even just a Tatum hate thing, which is funny, but it's gonna be a legitimate argument. It's like, hey, this guy is just he's a part of something great, but we're not seeing crazy seasons, you know.
Yeah. To get back to what I said about Isaiah Thomas a little bit ago, you've got the Tatum, Jalen kind of who is the better, who is the best, this guy. And they support each other decently well. I know there's been a lot of trade one for the other, but I think if they keep playing, they kind of cannibalize each other on these all-time things,
Mhm.
unless you get that really great season from one of them. Because if you just look at like Kawhi Leonard's seasons, Kawhi Leonard's his 2019 year or Rick Barry's 75 year,
Mhm.
which
Rick Barry's
m-
67 year, where he averages 49 in the finals.
man, I'm gonna just tell you, I read so I've recently finished Black Ball and I highly recommend it to everyone.
Mhm.
There's some beautiful Rick Barry erasure where they're talking about like black prominence. And they're like the 75 Warriors are mostly black starting five if just won the NBA
Mostly
title.
black. Yeah,
I'm,
yeah.
I'm like, but Tatum, Tatum still needs to hit that level to I think get in this tier. I think if they win the title next year and he has basically the same season, you're right that Drexler
Mhm.
probably over Drexler and Gervin, but I don't know that he starts to break into the Iverson, this kind of cluster of point guards we have in here.
It would be tough. It'd be
Yeah,
tough. I'm interested to see where that's heading. I don't think the Olympics are gonna give him a huge boost of confidence, but
started against South Sudan.
yeah. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He's never gonna get over that benching, though. Alright. Where are we at?
I think we're somewhere in the 30s is
Okay.
here. Do you have any other things? The next message I've got is about Ray Allen and Paul Pierce's rankings.
Hmm. Alright, let me read off let me get there real quick. So, we'll go Shays. Dolph Shays is now, 37, then Steve Nash at 38, Isaiah Thomas 39, Jason Kidd, Gary Payton, Allen Iverson now 42, was 43 right behind Gervin. We decided to flip those. I built the argument for Gervin over Iverson. I think you get a better like 5-6 year stretch, but man, Allen Iverson took over that 01 season. He really
Hmm.
did in a way that Gervin never really gets close to. Um, I think that's just the coolest thing to me. That's the most impactful season. I think he's the second or third best player in basketball that year. I'd lean towards second. At least that's what I said at the time. Um, Crazy closeout games, just massive performances. After that, Gervin, of course, then Drexler, Dave Cowens, Willis Reed, Elvin Hayes, Luka Doncic, 48th, was 88th, but I think had a season that really surprised us. We went from like this Mavs team is fire, I don't like it, to this crazy finals run where he really just kind of shocked the world. So up into a pretty high upper echelon, I'd say is certainly exponential. Like if you get your team to the finals, you're going to be in the 50s conversation. Like that's where we're at. And then from there, what can you build on top of that? Almost at Paul Pierce. Walt Frazier, 49. Dominique Wilkins was 44, now 50th. I think we just kind of underrated the fact that he does not play defense or pass. Tracy McGrady, John Stockton, Dwight Howard, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, then Paul Pierce. Can I make a note on Westbrook?
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of love the 2017 season. Like, kind of looking at
yeah.
that and, like, thinking about it in a certain way. I've always been such a Westbrook hater, but, I think the issue is people way overvalued him, and so we kinda push back really hard. That's a really good season, dude, and it makes me feel like we have him too low, but I just don't know who I'd put him over.
I mean, I do think in this range, you have a lot of guys who could offer different things. And if you looked at it from different perspectives, like Walt Frazier could not do what Westbrook did in that season.
Mhm.
That sort of level of individual carrying, but he
But
also doesn't put the ceiling on you that Westbrook does,
mhm,
as in that he's going to need to be on the ball and he's going to make these bad decisions. And there
mhm,
will be flameouts. Frazier is more consistent. He is much better suited to being a number two. Like, so it kind of just depends on how you look at some of these things. The one versus two debate. Dwight Howard versus Anthony Davis. Davis
mhm,
could never do what Dwight did in raising Orlando, but also Davis was able to assimilate very well next to another star, something
mhm.
that Dwight kind of balked at with Kobe and again with Harden. There were issues in both those spots, and so
Great point, that's a great point. I think you get guys that you wanna fit in at this point. Could
mhm,
Westbrook can stand out, but I think for his career, you're kinda begging him to fit in. Like, please just, like, take this role, like, play next to these guys well. It is interesting because like, all the people he played with, absolutely loved him. I think Westbrook is just one of, like, the best NBA people we've had. He's kind, he's gentle, he's an amazing father, he's a good family man. Um, and, like, Paul George had the best season of his career playing next to him, and I don't think that's a coincidence at all. Like, he does make his teammates better. Um, I just think overall, you kinda wish he did less. You
yeah.
wish he was trying, I guess, just trying less, and that's so tricky, but, yeah, I look at, I'll look at, let's say, the last, game 64 to 80 of that season, 2017 season, he's averaging 33, 11, and 12. And in the final game to clinch the playoffs and also to send Denver home, I think they clinched the playoffs, but I know they eliminated Denver doing it. He had 50 points, 16 boards, 10 assists, and a game-winning three.
Yeah.
It's Westbrook, man. Like, you'll never get that from Frazier, but maybe that's not what we're looking for.
It is interesting, and I would the Westbrook versus Iverson. Where do we have Iverson up here with 42? They're both guys that have insane individual years. I think you could probably make a case that Iverson's team is better constructed around him in that they are a lockdown defensive element, and Westbrook's team is not, but as good
Mhm.
defensively. I do think though if that Thunder team was worse offensively, the lack of spacing would really hurt Westbrook. Um,
Sure.
I think we have him in a good spot, and I think we between the two of us have good discord in that we're like we really love our list and we really love making this list. If
Mhm.
someone said, "How can you have Iverson over Westbrook?" We'd give our reasons, but I think we also have been doing this long enough that we understand different people's individual biases and values could flip these two guys. And like I wouldn't flip Jordan for number 5, Duncan, but I wouldn't be mad if someone flipped Iverson and Westbrook. It's like that's you start to see the numbers of places starting to like it gets
Mhm.
greater, but the actual space between them gets less. And that's something
Yeah.
I just always have to say to people when they look at these lists of how can you have this guy 20 spots above that guy?
I mean, I think it comes down to the little things.
Yeah.
With you want, let's say, like, 01 Iverson and 2017 Westbrook, let's say they're equally good regular seasons, but then you have the finals run, or Westbrook ends in just kind of a caricature of basketball, like this just crazy, like 37% shooting, 30-point triple double. Do I even like what's going on? Like I think, but I'm not really sure if I'm interested in this. And they lose in 5 games to James Harden, which is always an embarrassing thing to do. And with Iverson, you see him make the finals. That's the difference. And that's all. Sometimes that's all it takes to jump from the 50s to up to the 30s is finishing it out. Um, Continuing on, let's actually the Paul Pierce argument. That's the next guy.
Yeah. So I
What's the
think it's
email?
really interesting. It was a Facebook comment I posted in the
Okay.
Overstated NBA group, Facebook
Okay.
group that I really love. Good, thoughtful people.
Yeah.
And a commenter, Chris, commented, I think for me, their careers when you factor in. Oh, sorry. He initially said that he has Ray Allen over Paul Pierce, and I just followed up and
Mm,
asked for what's your case. And he says,
interesting.
I think for me, their careers when you factor in statistics and award, they're really close.
Hmm.
Pierce has the Finals MVP. Ray did more in his younger years, not a ton, but leading teams to the playoffs more consistently. And with it being close for me, the fact that he's retiring as the greatest 3-point shooter, volume and efficiency gives him the bump for me. Ray ended
Hmm.
his career on a much better of a decline, while Pierce sort of fizzles out after Brooklyn. His scoring and 3-point shooting efficiency lets Steph become Steph and leaves a greater, longer lasting impact in the league.
That's interesting. I'm interested in them being a little bit closer. I
Mm-hmm.
do feel like Pierce has better, actually, kind of does have better longevity. Or I think Allen once they joined together, Allen kind of fit in behind Pierce on the overall hierarchy. Um, and even as late as these like 2013 Celtics teams when Pierce is like 35 years old, you're getting him like still averaging we're getting his usual 18, 20, and 9. Like he is the offensive focal point. He's like the leading scorer on these teams. Pierce on my like top 10 each season, like my goodness scale thing. Pierce has one of the most appearances in the top 20 for any player.
Hmm.
He never drops out. He's always in there. Um, Let me see if I can find that real
I'm
quick.
guessing not very high.
Not very high. Let me just a quick detour.
While you're pulling that up, I'm going to read the guys and names in between them. So Pierce is
Mm.
56. After him, we have Paul Arizin, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, Bob McAdoo, Jimmy Butler, Damian Lillard, Chris Webber, Hal Greer, Artis Gilmore, and then Ray Allen at 66.
Okay. I'd love to move Artis Gilmore down. I I I just feel like Gilmore, you get like I think he dominated the ABA because they lacked centers. I think he was a non-factor in the NBA, essentially. Like you go into any like no contributions to winning really. Like no one really speaks super highly of him. He's just kind of apathetic. But really quickly, so Paul Pierce, you want to take a guess how many times Paul Pierce appeared in the top 20? Sorry, top 30.
Top 30. Oh, I would assume like 15 times.
15 times is right. How many
I'm
times
really
did
good at
Ray
what I
Allen
do, babies.
appear in the top 30?
So I think Ray Allen's decline comes much sooner.
Uh-huh.
I would say 11,
9. So we get
9.
9. I'd like to say that, I'm always like, I'm just sitting on the fence. I'm a chronic fence sitter where it's just like, I see the both sides to it. Allen's off ball movement and the way he could space the floor isn't something that this model's going to pick up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think Pierce is better. Like, I think Pierce is better for longer. Um, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with it.
I think Pierce has a great late career revival with that
Hmm.
'08 team. I think if that team doesn't come together, they probably trail off in similar ways, and Pierce isn't remembered as fondly, but they do come together. And Pierce is the finals MVP. And while I do think Kevin Garnett is the best player on that team, and that was another missed finals MVP
Hmm.
case, I think it's really interesting because in like the grand scheme of things, what Ray Allen contributed to the NBA, what his legacy is, I could see him being over Pierce.
Hmm.
But he
I'll propose
never.
something. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Oh,
You
I was
wanna
just gonna
look.
say.
Mhm.
I was gonna say I don't think he has the gravitas to get over some of the guys in between them, the Chris Webbers, the Damian Lillards, the Jimmy Butlers, the Joel Embiids. And I think I would rather have Pierce than a lot of those guys. So I'm kind of in like a rock, paper, scissors debacle here. What would you like to propose?
Basically moving one down and the other up. Like, are we too high on Pierce possibly and too low on Allen?
Well, so here's the other thing. I don't think we can lower Pierce below Jason Tatum.
Yeah, that's it. It is a very rock, paper, scissors-y, where maybe we're too high on Tatum. Is that the issue?
Maybe. But at this point, with what Tatum has shown us in the playoffs, well, not like Tatum's had great finals runs. I wouldn't hate dropping him.
He won a championship. He won a championship. He made 2 finals. He's played a bunch of playoff games. Like, I think I like where he is. Looking down, like, I don't think I would change much. It's just such I think it's such a messy area where it's so many. I think the biggest thing is we are meeting careers in movement with careers that are completely finished. And we're projecting a little bit. We're trying to guess where things are going. We are evaluating 7 years versus a whole 20-year career. There's ABA stuff going on. It's just kind of a mess. I think we have it where I like it. Moving on from that, I'll talk about we had Pierce at 56, then Arizin 57. Tatum went from 58 or from 74 to 58. It's a pretty substantial jump. Listen, man, you win a championship. He was the best player on that team. I think this is where he belongs. Embiid to jump from 63 to 59. Any interest in moving Embiid up any higher? No? All right. Just curious. No. I think we what you get with Embiid is he was the best player in the world for like 3 months. And then he gets hurt again.
Yeah, I think what we talked about with David Robinson is an even worse case because he's also not healthy during the regular season. So you're not having as dominant of regular seasons and then the playoff flameouts. Like
it gets him just for Robinson. You're gonna have him go 30, 12, and 5, and then Embiid's gonna do the same thing. But you know what? He's gonna get locked up by Aaron Baines or something. Like that's what happens to Embiid in the playoffs.
Fucking miss Aaron Baines, baby.
Do you remember that? Do you remember the play I'm talking about specifically at the layup like right under the basket? No. Anyways,
do you remember when Aaron Baines started hitting threes to start a year?
Yeah,
and I do. Was just knocked down, like leading the league top of the key threes out of nowhere.
It's the Zach Randolph 3-pointers. Okay, after that we have Bob McAdoo at 60, then Jimmy Butler, Dame Lillard, Chris Webber was 59th, now 63. I even feel like we still might be too high. If I made a list of the top 10 superstars you really don't want on your team come playoff time, like he's in there. At the same time, I think where we got it right because he's still next to Embiid, who has the same problems. He's still in that category. How do you feel about that?
I am more generous to Webber's playoff faults in that they come very close in 2 different times. One, you've got the 0-2 season where they are screwed heavily by the refs. And then in 0-3, Webber gets hurt, doesn't finish out the series, is against Dallas. And then I want to say it's 0-4. I might have my years slightly mixed up. But 0-4, Peja gets hurt. Is
the other
that
piece,
the right
though,
year?
too, is Peja gets hurt again. I think refs or no refs, though, Kings just beat the Lakers with a healthy Peja.
Yeah. And you can certainly look at that game 7 where he doesn't play well. Chris Webber does not play well in that game 7. But I think that kind of gets overblown in the totality of his career. I am closer to wanting to move him up than down.
Okay, we'll keep him right there then. All right, Hal Greer then. Artis Gilmore. Can you move Artis Gilmore back?
Yeah. Drop him below Walton.
Hell yeah.
I'm not dropping him below Morning, but we can. Hal Greer can drop to 69.
I love Bill Walton. I think it basically took him getting healthy one time to win a title, to dominate. They had the league on the ropes in 78, where I think with Gilmore, like once the leagues merge, it's just so much meh. So much meh. Um he plays for so long, but I just am so not interested. He makes so after he wins the 75 finals, the next conference finals he makes is in 1988 with Boston. Like, he makes the playoffs in 81 with Chicago and 83 with the Spurs and 85. And that's it. So we have 3 NBA playoff appearances outside of I guess 4, 5. What am I looking at here? One second. Let
For
me
Walton?
restart. No, we're talking about Gilmore.
Okay. I found an error in my matrix, or not my matrix, the list here,
Yeah.
where we've got a gap between 69 and 71, and I got 2 guys at 82. So while you do your thing, I'm going to be just shifting everyone up by a position.
Okay. I think the issue with Gilmore is when he joins the NBA, he's a big nothing burger, basically. NBA playoff stats read as, let's say, 77 to 86. I'll cut out his 88 year. It's 17 points and 8 boards. And they win 1 playoff series. I think I keep fucking this up. 1? 2? I don't even know. No, he wins 1 in 81. I think I'm just done trying to explain.
Come on, let's ride it. The store around the corner.
I can't. For some reason, I can't get the Gilmore case right. How do you feel about it?
I think Gilmore dropping to 69 is good. I think he should still be above Spencer Haywood. I think that is a very similar touch point of a couple of ABA greatness and then kind of descending into mediocre NBA. I wouldn't even mind moving Haywood back a bit.
I think we'll get there.
But we should read the names.
Final case. Final Artis Gilmore case. And everything else gets edited out. From 1977 to 88, Artis Gilmore was below 500. 443 and 446. I think that nails it for someone that is so talented, for someone that puts up these crazy numbers. He's not really impacting winning at all at the NBA level. I think he was just so fast, so big, so athletic in the ABA that they win a title. He wins an MVP. As soon as the center competition gets a little bit tougher, he just falls.
You think I'm editing this shit?
Yeah, you're gonna come back to this. You're gonna come back to this moment exactly and take it out. I think if we make like 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 40 seconds, come back there and take it out. Artis Gilmore trip, yeah, dude, you're gonna embarrass me in front of my friends. They're gonna think I don't know anything about basketball.
I think if anybody's listening to this point, they know you know about basketball. All right, so with that, then actually, you know what? I'll even let you move Bill Walton up to 67 over George McGinnis.
Hell yeah! One sec.
All right, then I'm gonna read what we have because coming from Weber at 63, the new 64. Well, Hal Greer 64, Ray Allen 65, English 66, Bill Walton 67, George McGinnis 68, Artis Gilmore 69, Spencer Haywood 70, Tiny Archibald 71, Paul George 72. We did a lot of reshuffling. We now have Alonzo Mourning at 73.
Yeah. I actually have, so we picked Thurman to be the front runner of that group. So I actually have, so Thurman is 70. Mourning is 7 down to 74.
That's what I missed here.
Yeah. So Thurman comes in at 70. I think you get the third best center from that era, someone that kind of splits the Russell and Kareem era. You have a great finals performance, an amazing defensive player. Absolutely love Thurman. He moved from 82 to 70. Then we had Spencer Haywood. You want to move Spencer Haywood back?
Yes. I would be down to move Spencer Haywood. I would be down to moving him as low as Robert Parrish, behind Robert Parrish.
I'd like to say that Haywood is still, he has his big ABA season. He's MVP, he's Rookie of the Year, first team NBA, league high 30 and 20. I mean, it's crazy stuff, right? he still goes to the NBA and makes 4 All NBA teams. Like he's still very, very good. But the area is quite weak given the mergers, given the split. So we can say Haywood down to where Parrish is. Above Parrish or below Parrish?
I'm fine with below Parrish, although I am just going to say this now the third time I'm retyping in these guys' numbers on the sides here. So let's put him down.
You got to keep better track.
I miss one update.
We're almost a third of the way there.
If this hits 2 hours, I'm just cutting it there, and we can figure stuff out afterwards.
No, I think we're almost out of the clear. Okay, I think we're just gonna keep on trucking. So Alonzo Mourning at 74, then Carmelo Anthony, Pau Gasol, Sam Jones, Kevin McHale, Grant Hill, Mel Daniels moved from 71 to 80, then Robert Parrish, then Spencer Haywood, 71 to 82. Neil Johnston, Dan Issel, Billy Cunningham moved up a bit, 84 to Jesus fucking Christ, 79 to 84. Bernard King, Sidney Moncrief, Wes Unseld, Kevin Johnson, Reggie Miller, David Thompson, Kyrie Irving, Tim Hardaway, Devin Booker, Tony Parker, Cliff Hagan. Yep.
If I could just stop you here.
Yep.
We every time we do this, we get comments on why is Reggie Miller so low. So I don't want to belabor the point. But the reason why Reggie Miller is so low is because Reggie Miller was not underrated in his prime. Reggie Miller brought really efficient offenses in limited bursts and played a very crucial part of a very good offense, a very good team role. But he also gave up a lot on defense. Reggie Miller is a guy who would have been better in the next generation after it because that's where basketball shifted. And so people tend to overrate what he did. The fact that he's a 5 or a 6-time All-Star and 3-time All-NBA is about right when you go through and look at it and the values of the era and season by season. And that's just kind of what it is. And you've been lied to with these people say he's top 50.
I think with Miller, you get him a face value. Like he's a 5-time All-Star and 3-time third-team All-NBA. Like I'm not gonna look into this all too much. You get these crazy playoff appearances and playoff play. That's why someone whose accolades look like they should be in the 140s, 150s is in the top 100. He already made that jump, but he's not a superstar. There is no season on God's earth where he was looked back on at the end and say that guy was a top 10 player in basketball. It never happened.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, and I will just say before anybody says Ben Taylor, do a little bit of critical thinking about Ben Taylor's research and stuff. When he starts doing the per 100s, that is going to dramatically inflate low volume players who played in a slower era. And it's not even close as to what it does. And if you watch Ben Taylor's other stuff where he explains how advanced stats work and whatnot, he says basically verbatim, things do not scale like this, and then goes on to use per 100 numbers in all of his arguments for Reggie Miller.
It's a little tricky. Yeah, I'm not sure why he goes about that. Great, smart person. I think he
very smart.
Falls on his face in that sense. But anyways, David Thompson's at 90. We said Kyrie Irving, Tim Hardaway. I'm going out to 100 real quick. Devin Booker, 93. Tony Parker, Cliff Hagan, Chauncey Billups, Bill Sharman, who moved from 109 to 97. Vince Carter, Amari Stoudemire, Blake Griffin, Bob Lanier, and Dennis Johnson is 102. I went a little bit over.
Did you go over with a purpose? Is there a guy in there that okay?
No, Dennis Johnson was moved from 109 to 102. Looks like Sharman and Johnson occupied the 109 spot at some point, but that's fine. Got moved a little bit stacked.
Yeah. I know we don't want to do a ton in this year, but what are your thoughts on David Thompson? Do we feel like he might be a little bit high? It's 4 or 5 really good seasons. He's Michael Jordan's inspiration. But he falls off very quickly. And I do kind of wonder if we went a little bit too much on peak and you know, peak with some assumed longevity where he just doesn't have that kind of assumed longevity. It's five and a
It's
half
these
seasons.
4 years. He makes another All-Star team later on, but he's definitely not as good. In the ABA, his first season, he's second in MVP voting, his ABA second team. Then he's first team All-NBA in the first 2 seasons post-merge. I think that's what makes him so good. In 76, him and the Nuggets go to the finals. In 78, him and the Nuggets again go to the conference finals. And so you see his impact pretty clearly. You want to move him like below Tony Parker?
Yeah, I do think it's so brief. And I beat the David Thompson drum a lot, but I'm starting to reconsider some of how much we've valued and prized peak. And we'll get to that because I think in our 130 ranges, I got a comment from a list or from a TikTok follower, and I think it might be a flaw or a bias in our own rankings to really look for those couple of MVP seasons and really
Okay.
really ratchet up on those guys.
Let's do it.
All right. Who's the next guy that you want to talk about?
Okay, we'll do it like that. We have SGA moving from 118. You think I'll get this one right? You think I can say these things right? Maybe I'll continue
No,
to flip
it all
numbers.
moves around.
No,
Moving into the
it's
118 range.
SGA goes from 196 to 118. Another MVP caliber season. A guy who was second in MVP voting. A lot of people felt he should be MVP. He was a top 5 player in basketball. That is worth its weight in gold. Comes up to 118.
All right. So let's read the names in between. In there, you stopped at Dennis Johnson 102. We've got James Worthy, the 103, Dave Bing, Jerry Lucas, Ben Wallace, Adrian Dantley, Penny Hardaway, Marquise Johnson, Chris Mullen, almost said Chris Mim, great Laker backup center, or in the Kwame Brown era. Connie Hawkins, Roger Brown, Jim Pollard, Dikembe Mutombo, Lenny Wilkins is 115, Derrick Rose is 116, Joe Dumars, and then Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. In reading some of the names ahead of him, do you feel like there's a case to have him higher?
I think he'll get there. I think you'd like to see him put together more of a career. I think we're at year 6 with him, so I think it's just going to be a longevity play at that point, unless he starts really putting together some impressive postseason runs, which is totally in the cards. I think the Thunder are going to move as the Western Conference favorites next season, so that'll be interesting to see. After that, Pete Maravich, Yao Ming, Paul Westphal, Tommy Heinsohn, Jack Sikma, Shawn Kemp, LaMarcus Aldridge, Chris Bosh fell back a little bit, 23 to 126. I kind of want to move Paul Westphal back. A very strange career. You have him making 5 All-Star teams and 4 NBA teams. But for some reason, the MVP voting is a little strange. In 1979 to 1980, he's first team All-NBA and does not get a single MVP vote. And the players are voting on that. And do you know how many people like are getting MVP votes in these seasons? Like the list is pretty deep. It's like it's a 9-man, 10-man race. Like not a single player, despite it being first team All NBA, was like Paul Westphal should be the most valuable, should get a most valuable player vote.
Let's take a look at that. So pulling up the 79 in MVP voting, you do have 10 different players getting votes. But it's Moses Malone gets 112 first place votes. Doesn't look like they did the stagger to the top voting. Behind that, you've got Gervin getting 35, Elvin Hayes getting 28, Kareem getting 15. So one guard and then 2 other bigs. Danridge gets 7. Then you start getting World Be Free, Jack Sikma as a forward, Phil Ford, David Thompson. Yeah, there are some guards, but they're getting 1-2 votes. They're also incomplete vote tallies. I wonder if maybe that affects it, and maybe he did get a vote. We just don't know it.
I also think the guards are pretty weak, specifically during this point. Yeah. All right. Let's just leave it. Let's just leave it. Okay. So after that, Marcus Gasol, 127, Sean Marion, Mark Aguirre, Bailey Howell, Paige Stojakovic, Gus Williams, Glenn Rice, Kevin Love, Draymond Green. We've thought of flipping those. Would you like to? Try a little Draymond over Kevin Love to finally
No,
time? All right. Maybe next
no.
season.
Maybe if Draymond can go another year without punching a teammate. But
Yeah. Not a great Draymond year.
I did get two comments in this section, and from the same listener, Get Over It. I think it's Get Over It Media or Get Over It Podcasts on TikTok.
Yeah. I think I remember that.
Yeah, they one wanted to know about, or maybe he only did one of these. He only did one of them. He wanted to know about having Peja like 50 spots better than Bobby Jones. And when I started to look into it, I think this is where we have some of our personal biases of the Peja 03 or 04 near fourth place MVP season, just an amazing year. Without Chris Webber, the Kings are still winning like 60-70% of their games, and he is just phenomenal. And then you got Bobby Jones, who is all defensive first team like 9 or 10 times, and then second team once, but has epilepsy and a heart condition, so he's playing limited minutes and coming off the bench, but just pretty good long-term levels of contributions versus Peja's briefer, at least at that peak. Although I do think Peja gets underrated for his longevity of contributions with New Orleans and Oklahoma. I think Hornets or Hornets teams.
Maybe we lean into peak a little bit too much. I do think part of the Jones issue is him not playing a ton. Like this dude is a role player. Like he is a role player where I think Page is able to kind of step into that more like 1A at times. And so I think he's a huge reason why, despite Weber getting hurt all the time, the Kings are basically better without him than with him. Page has that great overall run. It's a fourth place MVP finish in a year where Garnett gets like 99. It's a near unanimous MVP. I think so much of that was just Weber going down and people being like, wow, like look at the Kings, like still really good. So it's kind of like Sabonis of last season almost, like kind of similar to like it's the surprise of things. Maybe we should move Jones up and move Page down.
Yeah. Well, and just kind of in this range, I got several other comments, but that involved a similar theme. One was on Jalen Brunson jumping up this high, and it's from Garrett on TikTok. He said Brunson is higher than Ja and Trey by a large margin, while having the same number of All-Star seasons, but less, or same number of All-NBA seasons, but less All-Star seasons. Is his past year really good enough for that gap? And I think you and I, when we look at some of these names in here, where we have Peja, we have Glenn Rice, we've got guys who had that top 5 MVP placement, and that matters a lot to us. And maybe doesn't matter that much. Maybe that's just something for us to consider.
I think Brunson has been awesome in the playoffs, like 3 separate occasions. He was this year, he was the year prior. When Luka went out, he saved his legacy by beating Utah. And so I think there's that. I think we should move Brunson down a little bit. No, I think let's say like Brunson below like Earl Monroe.
Where's Earl? Oh, all the way down there. Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think that's fair because just to read some of the names, because you read all the way down to Brunson, and so Brunson's 138. Then we have Mark Price, Mitch Richmond, Donovan Mitchell, Manu Ginobili, Vern Mickelson, JoJo White, Jaylen Brown, Bob Davies, and Earl Monroe. And I guess I'm okay underrating some of these current guys because they'll prove us wrong or they won't.
Yeah.
Like their careers are still yet to be seen. I don't think he has the longevity yet. So we're going to drop Brunson down to 147. And that whole crew I just read, starting with Mark Price at 138, will move up one spot.
So how about Peja?
I think that's going to have to be a conversation of a later time.
Okay.
Just just how deep we are into this already. And it's not something that I'm fully committed to, but I think it's just a biasy that we may want to watch out for. Is some of these guys who,
Mhm.
Clay doesn't peak as high as Peja. Clay plays, I would say, at a higher level longer, or though.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, I think we could say that of a number of guys in here. That might just be something we need to watch out for and think about.
Okay. We'll keep thinking about it. All right, after Peja, Gus Williams, he read all these names. We'll start down at Jalen Brunson. Then we had George Yardley, Reese Lucas, Dave DeBuscher moved up 159 to 151. I think now 150. Gobert moved up from 178. My numbers are a little off, but that's fine. Joe Folks, Maurice Stokes, we got an email about. Want to defend Stokes for a
Oh,
second?
yeah. Yeah, so we just got a really a polite from Aaron O. You're not smuggling in your own emails. That would be incredibly lazy to just change your last initial. Hey, I know Maurice Stokes had an amazing peak. How do you justify putting him over players who have much longer careers? Would you like to start?
It's just the 3 seasons are incredible. He's averaging 16 and 17 with 5 assists per game. I mean, he's really, really good. He's all NBA all 3 of those years. He is such a special talent. Maybe we're back into that same issue, but I feel like looking below this, like we're getting guys whose careers are never like 3 NBA teams, maybe 3 in a row, never. Like, we're not getting that from these guys in the 150 out to 200 range, and so I think I feel pretty good about Stokes right there.
Yeah. If you read about Stokes from the guys that got to play with him and his teammates, a lot of those comments come in the 90s, and they say that Stokes had the build of Karl Malone, but if he was more fluid and a better passer. And if I tell you a more fluid, better passing version of Karl Malone, where does your head go in 2024?
He's the best player in the world. Sounds really good.
That's
Right?
LeBron James.
Yeah, basically.
Uh, you know, I think you have to look at someone. It's super brief, but if your chances of winning for those 3 years with him are much higher than an entire career of Larry Nance Sr. And that's not to diss Larry Nance Sr. or Tom Chambers. It's just kind of is what it is. It's a guy who was
Just
one
the
of the
caliber of player.
five best players in basketball.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to vary for everyone as to how much what they would really do with that.
On my scale, Stokes was 6th and 56th and 9th and 6th. He's up there. After that, we moved Robin way up, 181 to 154. Walter Davis, DeMar DeRozan, Brad Daugherty, Chet Walker, Tom Chambers, Lou Hudson, Larry Nance, Darren Williams from 170 to 162. Then Bobby Dandridge, John Wall from 156 to 164. Fell a bit. Go ahead.
We have an email.
Mm.
Bobby Dan, or not an email, a TikTok comment from the same Get Over It Media. Why is Bobby Dandridge behind Darren Williams? Bobby Dandridge should have been Finals MVP in '78, and I don't disagree. I'm willing to
Okay.
make that flip. I'm actually willing to move Dandridge up a little bit here because he's never the best player on his team, but he plays big roles with the Bucks and with the Wizards.
Above DeMar DeRozan.
I think so.
All right.
I think I'm willing to get him up there. It's kind of an oversight, and the way we do these, with the positional thing, it kind of does put on some blind spots. That's at times, but to just like the guys that they're immediately next to.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's.
I think we're doing a good job. So Dandridge goes up there. Then we have Darren Williams, 170 to 162. John Wall moved down. Then Ralph Sampson, Zelmo Beatty, Jamal Wilkes, Well Bellamy, Elton Brand, Gilbert Arenas. Anything?
No.
Latrell Sprewell, Baron Davis, Gus Johnson, Larry Faust, Charlie Scott. I'd actually like to move down. You get some high scoring seasons. I think he was a bit of a black hole. And the Suns, they would play like teams that traded away Charlie Scott.
Got better.
Got better.
How far?
I think below Chris Middleton.
I think that's fair. don't know why I didn't just start copying and pasting numbers earlier, but it's amazing modern technology.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
So,
After that, go ahead.
so Scott was 175.
Mhm.
Now, Easy Ed McCully is 175. Max Zaslofsky, who a commenter promised me an email about Max Zaslofsky needing to be higher than Larry Faust, and it never
Did we
came
not
in.
get it? Never
Never
came.
came in. Very upset. I wanted that email.
Tisk.
177, Richard Hamilton, Jack Twyman, Larry Johnson, Arnie Risen, Slater Martin, Bobby Jones, Kyle Lowry. If you're watching the video, I have 75 next to Bobby Jones' names because there's multiple Bobby Jones, and a lot of the Matrix works off of VLOOKUPs, so that's how it differentiates. Kyle Lowry is 183. Isaiah Thomas, the Celtics version, and Chris Middleton, now Charlie Scott, then Rajon Rondo, Bam Adebayo, Alex Gorza,
Groza.
Groza.
Hit you to the fucking laptop. Get that shit right.
Groza, Gorza.
It gets you every time.
Gets me every time.
And
the problem is that I started thinking about it, and then it gets even worse.
Behind also, like a fucking.
Aren't you supposed to be like a speech therapist or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, you're picking up my speech impediments. I went to speech therapy for 2 years, motherfucker.
All right. I think we should move Isaiah Thomas down. I think back in the vein of like maybe we looked into the peak, the single season peak a little too much. How do you feel about like a behind Chris Middleton? That's actually one spot.
I'm fine with the one spot. Well, I actually worry that we overrated Chris Middleton a little bit. I was really pushing him up the list.
I like Middleton. Middleton was fantastic.
He is. I think I'd rather have Isaiah Thomas up there. This is what I was saying with a bit of us rating the MVP seasons too high. Is like we're like, man, this 4th place MVP finish for Glenn Rice. Let's get him up to 130. This 5th place MVP season for Isaiah Thomas. He's 184. Like I don't think we maintain
Glenn Rice has a legit career though. Like Glenn Rice played a long time, and so,
and Peja has. Just a thought. Just kind of trying to catch our own biases and think about things.
All right. Well, you want us to leave Thomas there then?
Yeah. We got Al Horford at 190. Do you have any more comments or changes that you wanted to talk through?
We moved up Bam Adebayo from 188 up to 188. We also moved Groza down to 189. I think that's about it.
The Groza piece, to get back to our Maurice Stokes conversation, it's super similar. Groza has this like dominant 2-year stretch before he's caught for point shaving. What do you do with it? It's super short, but his 2 years, I think, give you a better chance of winning a title than pretty much anyone that comes after him.
Yeah. After that, we had Al Horford, Bill Laimbeer, Buck Williams moved up 215 to 192. Then Harry Gallatin, Terry Cummings, Lee Dampier, Jimmy Jones, Matt Calvin both got moved down. Trae Young, Bob Love, Clyde Levelette, Jermaine O'Neal, Domantas Sabonis moved up from 208 to 202. Rolando Blackman, Alvin Robertson, Ja Morant. Do you think we moved Ja Morant up too much?
I don't think we really touched. We didn't touch Ja.
We didn't touch it, but I think I had slotted him at 244, and then when we came back, we moved it to 204 together. It's like he literally just played a quarter season and couldn't keep his hands off of guns in the strip club. And they were like, yeah, move him up 40 spots.
Listen, I'm not dropping him below DeMarcus Cousins.
All right, there he is. Then all right.
Do you want to put Anthony Edwards above him? Do you want to flip flop those two guys?
Nah, I think we're good.
All right. I wouldn't hate it. I think
Joe Johnson, then Anthony Edwards, then Kemba Walker. Anthony Edwards, DeMarcus Cousins, then Kemba Walker. Willie Wise fell back like 70 spots. Dale Ellis, Michael Finley, Phil Chenier, Derek Coleman, Larry Keenan, Rashard Lewis, Meta World Peace, Detlef Schrempf, Warren Jabali fell back from 147 to 219. Anything?
There is the consideration to continue to push push Warren Jabali down. I do also wonder if we need to push Andrew Toney down. I think when I start to see a whole cluster that I feel like we should push down, it probably is in a good spot. I think this is where the list takes kind of a sizable turn in the quality of players that we're looking at here. I mean, Meta World Peace, head case is what he could have been in Indiana, though, would have been significantly higher. What we got from him, I feel like this is the right place. Bradley Beal may be a little bit low. This might be just us underrating him in the moment. But I may also just think too favorably of the Wall Beal Wizards. So I think we're good.
I like Toney. Got that right so far. I think Beal can pass him up, but so far it's like Bradley Beal can get you big numbers on shitty teams, and like he has 0 notable playoff moments. After that is Fat Lever, Terry Porter, Brandon Roy, Joakim Noah, Carlos Boozer, Eddie Jones, Bobby Wanzer, Pascal Siakam, Jamal Murray, Maurice Cheeks, Rasheed Wallace. You want to move Sheet up?
I always want to move Sheet up.
Did we already do that? I think
we
already did that. Let's just leave it.
I'm still in to move him up more.
Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Tomjanovich fell back a little bit. Otis Birdsong, Ralph Simpson, Richie Guerin, Gene Shue, Big Dog Glenn Robinson, Billy Knight, Joe Caldwell, Ron Boone, Donnie Freeman, Paul Silas, Kiki Vanderway, Randy Smith, Larry Jones fell back, Norm Nixon, and then number 250, Drew Holiday. Moving Drew Holiday up.
We already did that.
We did that?
Right. We did that. But I walked away from our point guards notes with some pretty different notes on De'Aaron Fox. I had him as point guard 47, and I had him at 212. When I matched this,
I think I went off the rails.
Patreon. I think I was pushing for him because I don't think De'Aaron Fox and probably Drew Holiday should be below Karl-Anthony Towns. I think we might be too high on Karl-Anthony Towns.
I like De'Aaron Fox. He was very good last season, and he was pretty good this season. The seasons prior to that are not good. They look good. He can't shoot. He's abysmal defensively. They're having real issues. The teams aren't good. And so if we're saying, oh, he's just good stats, bad team, like Karl-Anthony Towns, better stats, like slightly better team. Like I think I'm going to take Towns. Fox can rise, but it's really like so far for like saying like, hey, this season's a net negative, this season's a net positive. Fox's career is in the negative right now. He is trying to make up for 6 seasons where he is a net negative. Like I know it's hard to like he's injured, he sucks on defense, and like the Kings are a disaster. And so I'm really not interested in any years prior to this last one and the one before that.
Okay. Then Fox 251, Sam Cassell 252, Andy Phillips, Dick McGuire, Bob Nedelicki, World Be Free, Horace Grant, Andre Iguodala, David West, Mike Conley. I think looking at Mike Conley next to David West, we need to have Conley a fair bit higher. Like he's starting to get into some of these. I wouldn't hate him as high as Drew Holiday. Would you rather have Drew Holiday's career or Mike Conley's career?
I think Holiday. You want to go between split Holiday and Fox?
Let's just go after Fox and ahead of Cassell.
I also think that
are we okay
Horace
with
Grant
that?
should be higher. Yeah. I feel like Horace Grant should be higher.
Where do you want to put Horace Grant? What are the thoughts here?
I think with Grant, you basically get someone who played in 36 playoff series, won 27 of them, 5 finals appearances and 4 rings. The big thing is he's playing 36 minutes a game for his career. Even in 01, at 35 years old, he's playing 25 minutes a night in the finals. He's playing, if we're going to organize, just look at his finals appearances, 39 minutes a night, 38, 39, 42, 25. Like, they're really good teams that can't keep Horace Grant off the floor. And I think that really matters. From 89 to 2000 in the playoffs, I mean, he's averaging 38 minutes a game. and he wins 3 championships and makes another finals, I think he's a better contributor to winning than Drew Holiday.
Okay. Would you like to have him looking at some of those names ahead of Drew Holiday? How do you feel about him and Paul Silas? Because I could see the case of him being over Paul Silas.
That's exactly where I was looking. I think we should slot him one just right above Silas. And probably fuck it even further. Let's push him.
That's what I was gonna say, because then you've got a lot of those the ABA guys, the Donnie, the Freeman, Ron Boone.
How do you feel about him right behind Sheed?
Ooh, right behind Sheed. I was gonna say right behind Gene Shu. Sheed's a good jump. I'm not there yet. Because I do love what he brings and the talent, but also you got to look at he's guy 3 with the Bulls, and once he kind of gets that pedigree, the Magic go after him to kind of be that solidifying older piece. Like he kind of gets shoehorned in, and then he's back with Phil Jackson with the 01 Lakers, and it is both. He is good as a defender and a versatile rebounder, but also there starts to be some personality and some prestige and some just name recognition for him as a role player who will come in for the right amount of money. Let's go behind Gene Shu. I think that's perfect. About as high as I'm comfortable moving.
All right. Okay, we left off at Mike Conley at 252 now.
Conley is now. Oh, I have no idea. I did that wrong.
253 now. 260, 253. Then Sam Cassell, Andy Phillip, Dick McGuire, Bob Nadelicki, World Be Free, Andre Iguodala, David West, Mookie Blaylock, Zach Randolph, Anton Walker, Charles Oakley, Julius Randle, we already dropped, Vlade Divac, Alvin Adams, Freddie Lewis, Luol Deng, John Drew, Carl Braun, Brooke Lopez, Norm Van Leer, Paul Seymour, Tom Gola, Rudy LaRusso, Vin Baker, Rick Smits, and Billy Paltz at 280. Anything?
No.
All right. Things are looking swimmingly. Jeff Hornacek, Anton Jameson, CJ McCollum was unranked, now 283. Doug Collins, Paul Millsap, Jason Terry, Tyson Chandler. Tyrese Halliburton makes an appearance, was unranked, now 288. Stephon Marbury, Victor Oladipo, Wayne Embry, Reggie Lewis, Dan Marley, Ron Harper, Mike Bibby, Otis Thorpe, Byron Scott, Richard Jefferson, DeAndre Jordan, number 300, Bill Bridges, and the extras, because we keep adding guys in, push them out, are Sidney Wicks, Calvin Murphy, Rod Strickland, Mike Ray Richardson, Jack Marin, Doug Moe, and David Lee.
And we had Michael Redd in there, and he got pushed all the way out. And we said, right, you know what? We'll figure it out later. Yeah. I think it's a pretty solid list. I would really love it if listeners came in and said, you know what? We're going to dig deep. We're going to try to make some cases. I am totally down to do another email episode. I think that was a lot of fun. Here are the best players by position that are not in the top 300 or 300 plus. Right now we have Red Robbins as center number 58, Jamal Mashburn as small forward 58, Jim Paxson's the Blazers version, shooting guard number 60. We have Anthony Mason, power forward, right? Yeah, power forward 64, or highest rated power forward on the list. And then we have to scroll a bit to get a point guard. We have Terrell Brannon, point guard number 72. Sorry, Kevin Garnett. That was, you had him and you had Stephon Marbury, and they traded away Chauncey Billups on you.
Sorry, I cut out for a second. I heard you. They traded away Chauncey Billups.
Aaron, where can the people find you?
Possible Chairs on TikTok, Possible Chairs on Twitter. This podcast rankings, and Nate, when you guys do the top 100, you better not leave me out of that. I know I haven't been able to attend, but I have to be there. I love that exercise. One of my favorite things to do. I need to start making my own. We're not really close to the next NBA season, but I'm just putting it out there early that whenever that happens, I gotta be there. I'll quit my job to make it. Also, my Cameo, which is in my in my links in my link tree. You can video request from there. I'm on a 13 streak right now, and I have no current invoices. So please, someone ask me to do something.
Sing, dance, wish you happy birthday. Aaron can
I
do
can
it
do
all.
it all.
Have you looked at your Cameo page from like an external point of view?
Don't think so. Is it working?
Well, Cameo has this like plug for you, and it's like, you know, internet personality Aaron Schroeder, aka Possible Chairs, could be booked for your next special moment. Bachelorette
yeah.
parties, bachelor parties,
Yeah.
birthday. Like,
That's funny. I like the audit. Anything. I'll do it.
yeah. You can find me here, Hoops Temple Podcast. You can email us both, hoopstemple@gmail.com. I'm on TikTok, Nate_Hoops Temple. And yeah, I have a Patreon. If you want to get the full matrix, it's what helps us do all of these rankings. Into here, it has so many numbers. And it just cross comparing players and eras. We have the whole thing available for purchase. It could be donation of your choice. There's prices on Patreon. I'm just trying to buy my soon to be born child whole diapers.
It's no big deal. Just soon to be born child, diapers. There's nothing serious.
Yeah, it's just supporting supporting a nice nuclear family unit of a mother, a dad, 2 dogs, and a cat trying to raise a baby.
Mm-hmm.
I think the cat's going to be pretty good at this.
All right.
All right. We'll catch you next time. Thank you for listening.